Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's billionaire sidekick, once said investing $100,000 was the most difficult part of creating wealth. And that quote, it's been drilled into our heads for decades. But here's the truth, it's wrong. It's not just a little wrong either. It's dangerously misleading for those who are trying to build wealth today. I'm gonna break down what Charlie actually meant, how compounding interest actually works, and also describe what the most difficult part of building wealth actually is. And if you're still chasing that $100,000, you need to hear this, because it might be the thing that's actually holding you back. So Charlie Munger's actual quote is this: the first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. I don't care what you have to do. If it means walking everywhere and not eating anything that wasn't purchased with a coupon, find a way to get your hands on $100,000. After that, you can ease off the gas a little bit. So what Charlie's meaning by this is that once you reach $100,000, your interest starts to create a lot more wealth than it was before. So let's say you make 10% interest. 10% off of $1,000, what is it? It's $100, okay? It's great, but it's $100, right? And what he's really saying is once you hit $100,000, 10% is $10,000. And what he's trying to say is that you start hitting the critical mass once you hit $100,000. The first problem I have with this is that it completely discounts how you got to $100,000. Interest doesn't just start generating when you hit $100,000. It starts generating way before. No matter what amount of money you have, interest is always being generated, even if you're off of $1. And it sounds really small, but what's 10% of a dollar? It's 10 cents. Obviously it's nothing, but interest doesn't care how much you have. It's always working. So for me, my journey from $0 to $100,000, take a guess at how much interest I made. I bet it's more than you think. Out of the $100,000, $25,500 was interest. So really, I only had to invest $75,000 to get to $100,000 over the course of a 6-year period. So the biggest problem I have with Charlie's advice is it makes it seem like you have to get to $100,000 before compounding interest actually does anything. And that's just wrong, right? I mean, 25% of what it took to get me to 100,000 was from interest alone. So again, that's the biggest problem I have with this quote. It makes you feel like interest doesn't do anything until you're at 100,000, but that's completely false. The other thing about this is it does make $100,000 seem daunting and impossible. I mean, think about yourself right now, depending on where you are in your financial journey. For some people, $1,000 seems impossible, let alone $5, $10, $50, or $100,000. So to say the quote, get your hands on $100,000, it's just way too lofty. What it should be is, hey, start with 1,000, get to 5,000. 10,000 is when it gets really exciting. And I get what he's saying. Again, the compounding interest really starts to take effect there, but you want to encourage people to start investing early and often so you can slowly get to that 100,000. It shouldn't be your first milestone. But the other problem I have with Charlie's quote is about easing off the gas once you hit 100,000. Do not ever ease off the gas. I'll talk about a little later the only time you should ease off the gas, but I'll give you a great example of why you shouldn't ease off the gas. Imagine two people, okay? They each start out with $100,000. So let's pretend you already hit that 100,000. And over the next 30 years, we'll use 30 years as a benchmark, one of them invests $500. The other one invests $1,000 a month for 30 years, okay? And look at what this looks like. The one investing $500 has almost $1.7 million. The one invested $1,000 a month is at $2.36 million. Okay. And I know you're thinking, yeah, but $500 a month, that's so much. I'm sure that was the difference, right? Over the course of 30 years, not as much as you'd think. Out of the $679,000 difference between these two, the actual difference of interest is $499,000. So there's $180,000 of principal, right? That's 500 extra dollars over 30. That's $180,000. But then the difference is $500,000. That's $500,000 in interest by not easing off the gas. That is a retirement that is drastically different. The only time you should ease off the gas is when you hit critical mass. And what that is when you're old enough to where your compounding interest makes well above the principal, well above what you're investing, is when you can ease off the gas, because what you're investing, that $1,000 a month or whatever you intend to do, when it's not really doing much, that's when you can back off the gas and you can let compounding interest take it, but do not ease off the gas once you hit 100,000. That's the other biggest problem with Charlie Munger's advice. So I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about compounding interest, the importance of it, and how it actually works. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is you can visibly see the difference between saving versus investing and compounding interest. The orange is saving. You're saving the same amount over time, and you'll see that compounding interest do that exponential curve, right? And you're seeing every year, you're getting more and more and more interest off of your investments. That's because you're getting interest off of the interest. If you take $100, 10%, right, is $10. The next year, because of that interest, you have $110. What's 10% of that? It's $11, $11, $12, $14. It continues to go up, and that is the power of compounding interest. It's what you're seeing now is one of my favorite graphs. I'll talk about a few things in this, but if you ever want to save a graph or a chart from my channel, this one's it to motivate you. So the first $100,000 for average takes 7.84 years. That's assumed saving $7,000 per year at 7% interest. And again, we'll talk about it a little bit, but not every year is the same. Some years higher and lower, but on average, the S&P 500 is around 7%. So it takes almost 8 years to get your first $100,000. And on your way to $1 million, that's around a quarter of the time. The next year, because as Charlie Munger said, $100,000 is when interest starts to really accelerate. It only takes 5.1 years, which is 16.6% of the time. So all of a sudden, 42% of the time to get to $1 million is just the first 200,000. And just keep looking at how the space decreases. 3.78 from 200 to 300,000, 3 years, 2.5, 2.1, 1.87. From $900,000 to $1 million, it takes a little over a year, and you can continue climbing. It's so interesting that it takes a long time to get that first one, but just remember the first $100,000 is the hardest to get because your interest isn't generating as much as 100 to 200,000 or 300 or 400. It's all perspective, but at the same time, this graph is so motivating that once you hit your 100,000, it's only 5 years to the next one, then a little under 4 years, and then 3 years. This is an incredible graph to show you compounding interest over time. Some other interesting things about investing in the stock market is the average returns. Everybody is all doom and gloom when 1 year goes down. And again, there are catastrophic events that takes years to recover. But this is a great example from the data of the S&P 500 around the average return over the course of years. So looking at this over the last 5 years, 14%, 10 years, 12%, 15, 20, 25, 30 years. The worst period, 25 years, okay, if you invested from 2000 to 2024, the average is still 7.33%. Now, that doesn't take into account inflation, but at the same time, this is with the dot-com bubble, the housing crisis, and COVID, 3 drastic declines of the stock market, and we're still averaging 7.33% returns. So this is just to show you that when you hold, okay, you will generate a positive annual return based on the last 100 plus years. This last thing I wanted to show you is over the past 96 years, okay? This is really interesting. Over the past 96 years, there have been 70 positive years and 26 negative years. And a period is a year. When you go to the right, 3-year periods, 84% of the 3-year periods were positive. 5-year periods, 88%, and 10-year periods, 94%. This shows that when you're holding for a long period of time, the percentage of success climbs drastically. So whenever anybody says, oh, don't invest in the stock market, it'll go down, it's dangerous, point to the data, point to the graphs. If you hold, you will have way more better years than bad years. Even if the market collapses, it will come back. Over a 10-year period, 94% of 10-year periods over the past almost 100 years are positive. So keep your money in the stock market, don't take it out until you retire, and trust that the data will show that you will get higher returns with more time in the market. So the one thing I want to talk about is what actually is the most difficult part of building wealth, right? Charlie Munger said the most difficult part is $100,000. I already said I disagree with that. The most difficult part is starting. It's literally starting, because starting's hard, right? Because depending on where you are getting paid from a job. You will have to take money that you're used to spending on bills, groceries, whatever, and invest it. That is by far the hardest. Getting started. Once you get started, it is not hard, because you're already used to that money coming out. Do you know what I started investing with? 0. Do you know what the majority of people start investing with? Unless they have some sort of inheritance? 0. Everybody starts at 0. And you have to make that firm decision to start putting any money in. It could be $20, $50, 5%, 2%. Ideally, you want to be investing 15% or more, but just start. Even if you started at $10 and then the next month try to go to 15 and 20 and 25 and keep building that habit. Once that money leaves your paycheck, especially if you automate it, you won't miss it. You've never had it. It's gone. So again, that is by far the most difficult thing. It's not to get to $100,000. It's to start. Because if you don't start, you'll never get to $100,000 no matter what you do. And ask yourself this question: what would you rather have? A little less money now, or to work forever and never retire and die working, right? I mean, it sounds severe, but if you don't save money now, we don't know what's going to happen with Social Security. You don't know about pensions. If you don't save money now and get compounding interest on your side, and you don't save it all, what will you retire on? How will you retire? You need money, even if you're old, even if you have a paid off house. Do it now. And not only can you retire one day, but potentially even retire earlier. One of the last things I want to talk about is when you're starting to invest, which is again, the hardest thing, it doesn't matter about timing the market. I know like ideally it is better to buy the dip is what they say. So when the stock market goes down, you buy and you catch up and you sell at the top and then you rebuy at the bottom. But they've done so many studies about estimating this and calculating it, and it's just not worth it. Look at what I have on the screen. If you didn't invest at all and you just saved up your cash, okay, look at how much less you'd have versus investing. So it goes to the point of how valuable investing is in the first place. But then you look at the perfect timing and then bad timing, investor A and investor C. Let's pretend you have the worst timing ever. You have the worst luck of all time. You're investor C. You have $141,000. Okay. If you have the flawless timing, okay, you wait for the perfect time to buy, you have $172,000. You're like, okay, well, $32,000 extra is huge. But if you just invest it, dollar cost averaging, just invest it all the time, don't worry about that, you'll have $161,000. Is it a little less than perfect timing by 10,000, 12,000? Yeah. But it's 20,000 more than bad timing. So it just makes so much more financial sense just to constantly investing in the stock market, no matter what happens. Always invest early and often is way more powerful than timing the market. It's great that Charlie wants you to get to $100,000 as fast as possible. I want you to get there too. But don't discount the compounding interest to get to $100,000. For me, it was $25,000. So you have help from compounding interest when you invest early and often. It's not all on you. As well as that, don't ease off the gas once you hit 100,000. That's also huge. Keep going. The more you invest now, the less you'll need to invest in the future, and the more rich you'll be when you retire. As always, like any YouTube video, everybody's gonna ask to subscribe. I really appreciate it. If you like, comment, subscribe. I want this community to grow. So pick apart what I've had to say here, push me. I just love it. Thanks a lot.